Thank you for joining us for another ARAS webinar. My name is Marianne Garcia Bowerman, and I am the current president for ARAS and the Associate Director of Programs at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Today's topic is succession planning, and our two speakers are Claire Travis and Brittany Reyes. Claire Travis is a surgery GME manager at Swedish First Hill Hospital with extensive experience supporting complex residency and fellowship programs, including prior leadership at the University of Colorado. She specializes in operations, accreditation, curriculum development, and training mentorship, working collaboratively to enhance educational quality and program effectiveness across surgical specialties. Actively engaged in national GME initiatives, Claire contributes to APDS, ARAS efforts and presents on topics such as holistic review and parental leave policy. She is known for her collaborative approach, problem-solving skills, and commitment to advancing surgical education while also enjoying running and exploring the Pacific Northwest outdoors. Brittany Reyes is an education program manager at the University of Colorado Medical Campus, where she oversees the administrative and educational operations of one of the largest ACGME accredited general surgery residency programs. She brings experience in graduate medical education, accreditation compliance, and team leadership with a strong focus on resident support and program excellence. Brittany holds a master's degree in healthcare administration and a master's in clinical mental health counseling, but blending operational expertise with a strong people-centered approach. I leave you now with Claire and Brittany.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brittany. Claire's also on here too. I know she's unmuted, so I'll let her introduce herself as well. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. And then I will get us started. So as mentioned, I am with the University of Colorado Anschutz School of Medicine in Aurora, Colorado, and then Claire works at Swedish First out in Seattle. And we have a unique experience because her and I used to work together at Anschutz, and she is the program manager who actually brought me in to this role. So a lot of working together in succession planning between the two of us, actually. So our current roles and professional paths are quite different, which allows us to bring some unique perspectives on today. But also we're very interested in the surgical training programs, and we believe that mentorship is an extremely important and valuable resource and tool when creating strong programs. So that's kind of where we decided this was an important topic for us to discuss with you guys. So some of the objectives today: discuss the importance of intentional succession planning, review the critical elements of the surgery program administrator role, highlight common pitfalls when planning for a transition, identify strategies to navigate personnel change while successfully managing complex programs, and help participants in today's session begin assessing where they are today and where they want to be potentially in 6 months, a year, and so forth. So first, we want to start today with why this topic was important to us. So why have a transition plan? So as mentioned, transition planning is essential because changes are not always predictable. And so while some departures are planned, many occur unexpectedly. And that could be things such as a career shift, retirement, personnel needs, personal needs, such as parental, medical, or family. And so obviously with relocation or institutional changes, that can also create unexpected vacancies. And one of the things that, really stands out for me is some of the turnover rates for this role can be as high as 30%. And then cost of turnover for, various roles in this industry can be anywhere from 100,000 or more typically. Which, is a pretty big cost expense to our departments, our universities, and institutions. So proactive succession planning helps ensure program stability and continuity during times of any of these transitions. So what this impact of turnover can also create is an indirect losses, including reduced productivity and lower team morale. So there's not just that financial piece, but it also impacts the team itself. And so it takes time for a new hire to reach full efficiency. Goodness, productivity on a team often dips during these transitions. New team members need time to learn and work independently. So it often takes time from the person training or other team members who are assisting. And so existing workflows can be also disrupted and can cause an increased workload for other remaining staff, which can sometimes be unsustainable, can lead to burnout, and it also increases stress, fatigue, if not managed thoughtfully. So that was another big reason why we wanted to discuss this. And then why we are all here and have jobs today is, of course, the risks of the surgical training program. So frequent transitions may also result in knowledge gaps and loss of institutional expertise, which can impact the program stability. Altogether, turnover doesn't just affect one role, it impacts the entire team. And the importance of intentional retention and succession planning strengthens long-term program success. So surgery programs are unique. And so very nuanced requirements. It also takes a long time, as we'll discuss today, training these individuals who come in to become program coordinators. And it is often one of those things where we describe as a cyclical event because you're always constantly learning something new throughout the year. So your starting point. So that would be understanding your situation. So you should identify your program status. Recently, I went to ACGME, and this was something that really stood out to me in one of the presentations I went to was the STARS model. So the first 90 days by Michael Watkins. So matching your strategy to your situation. So is it a startup? So, a new program, becoming a new coordinator, the turnaround. So is your program on warning? Do you have citations? Are there poor metrics? Are you not meeting your case log requirements, so forth, that we sometimes see? And so that would be the turnaround point for a program. Accelerated growth. Your program could be growing in complement and, adjusting for those needs, or the department expansion, creating additional integrated programs that come into your program or so forth. So you're working and doing a lot of things that are expanding your program and your workload. And then realignment. So are there any institutional or program changes with leadership? And then your sustained success. So if you're at a point of high performing, how are you maintaining it? How are you going above and beyond that? So you don't want to stay too stable in that area. You want to keep pushing. Another awesome example for identifying your program status is doing possibly a SWOT diagram before after your APE with your program leadership and recognizing the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within the program. So understanding your institutional environment. So you do want to reflect on your your institution structure. So as we know, each institution is very different. You could have a very large, complex academic institution, or you could have something smaller. Knowing where you're at. And then the context in which your program operates. So understanding your institutional environment helps you plan more effectively for staff transition and program stability. So some considerations that we had in this was, are there programs in your geographic area you can collaborate with us or with? So for us personally at the University of Colorado, we have another institution not very far in Denver, St. Joe's, and they actually rotate on our services. And through that, we've actually developed a really good bond and relationship, and where we work and we share some sites, etc. So that is a really good way for us to collaborate. And then what institutional resources and partnerships are you available to support your program? So going within the GME office, are there programs on campus that it looks similar to yours, etc. So that's always a good starting point. You should consider your new unique program and team circumstances. So what means most to your program? Our program is very focused on research opportunities and fellowships, program structure, program history, So a big thing is, where would your program feel the biggest impact if one of your key staff members left tomorrow? So those are things to consider when you're thinking of your program and the team. I'll give you guys a second to look over that. And then defining your current state. So understanding your own situation is important. So whether you're planning to stay long term, considering retirement, or exploring other opportunities, this can help guide the level of urgency planning that is needed. So even if a transition is not imminent, it is still important to support professional growth within your team. So program administrators and coordinators will naturally move on at some point in their careers. And it's important to do your part to get them to where they are also looking to go. By investing in professional development, identifying career pathways, and encouraging mentorship, you will also help prepare staff for future opportunities while also strengthening the program in and of itself. And succession planning should not only occur when someone is about to leave. It should be an ongoing effort to build capacity and leadership skills within the team. This approach ensures that institutional knowledge and operational expertise are continuously shared. So today we'll look at, kind of the long-term succession planning, but it is important to know that there can be disturbances in these plans as well. And so we've kind of split this up into next steps.
There, this is Claire, and I'm going to start with what's next. It kind of makes me feel like President Bartlett on West Wing. He goes to his day, he says to his staff, "What's next? What's next? What's next?" Okay, so what's next? Next slide. So timelines can vary quite a bit. I have learned the hard lesson from experience that I can set a timeline for a transition and then it doesn't happen. Because I've been working in this field a very long time. So, but we decided to take a sort of a 1-year approach to this talk, just because it's a nice cycle for the program, and it also is easier to follow, and it also assumes that you have a good amount of time to prepare for the transition that's going to occur. That longer timeline, it allows for intentional mentoring, structured training, and leadership development so that the person stepping into the role feels confident and prepared. We're also going to share some tips for unplanned circumstances. Next slide. So the learning curve is cyclical. We took quarters 1 and 2 and just laid out kind of how you could do a training program for someone who's learning. Quarter 1 being orientation and observation, depending on the person's background. If they have actually had, say, 5 years of GME experience in surgery, they won't need to be shadowing. You can just give them, assignments of what to do and areas of expertise that they handle, or a particular class that they would support, and then they can just go. But if they have absolutely no experience at all, it's really overwhelming to learn about graduate medical education if you're not even familiar with medical education or medical schools. If you do not have a family member who is an academic physician, there's a lot to learn on day 1 just to figure out how surgery residency programs run. So in that case, you would do more of an orientation first and have them observe activities and then get their feet wet with little things. In quarter 2, skill development. And that would be smaller projects and training through your institutional and national GME resources. And then perhaps letting them sign up for a mentor to help train them that would be outside of the program, perhaps someone else in the institution that's been in GME for a while, or even through the ARAS program. And we're going to talk about that more later. Developing competency takes time. And I think it's important at this stage of the game, the early stage, to reassure new staff that it is okay to not know what you don't know and to ask questions. Being comfortable in the unknown. And new coordinators, they struggle with low autonomy due to continual new program needs and developments through the academic year. One helpful approach to think about graduated autonomy over the course of an academic year is by structuring responsibilities in phases. New team members can build confidence while still having appropriate guidance. The structured progression helps ensure that transitions are intentional, they're supported, and they're sustainable. Next slide. So this table comes from a recent Journal of Graduate Medical Education article. It was very, very nicely done. It lays out a 9-domain framework of defined responsibility for program administrators and from ACGME. It provides definitions for each and examples. I think it's important to cover all of these bases when training a new staff member. It doesn't really do any good for you to train someone in knowledge and in the liaison area and not help them learn how to do those general admin tasks, because nothing will ever get done. You won't have the execution part of the process and the operations part. So all of these pieces of the ACGME standards and framework and expectations, they all matter. And so pulling those different domains into the different parts of the training that you're giving someone who's new to the job, it takes a little bit of kindness in addition to explaining things as you go, and then also helping new staff understand that things like, for example, the program evaluation committee and the clinical competency committee and case logs and all of that, they're not optional. Those are not things you can just skip over, and that they're very important, and that they have to learn how to really make sure everything is covered in those meetings, for example. Next slide. So building a development path. I want to start with your staff members' strengths. Recognize their individual strengths. And I'm going to use Brittany as an example. I hope I don't embarrass her to death, but she came into our environment at Colorado, and she had a counseling background, and she had her master's degree, and she had extensive experience in working with students and in providing very genuine, sincere, helpful help to people who were who needed some specific help with a particular problem. And that whole approach of working with individuals was something that Brittany was able to really use on the job from day one. She was immediately able to just jump in and help people and have great connections with people and conversations with people. And those interpersonal skills were just such a strength. It also helped the team develop. And in just recognizing that, we were able to give Brittany responsibilities right away that we might not give to someone who was like exceedingly shy. They might not have been able to lead meetings or, take the initiative with senior program directors and things like that. So those are things that you can just assess when you start to get to know your people. And you would use a custom or a bespoke approach. In other words, not everybody is the same, and not everybody brings the same talents and interests to the table. One person might just love running events and just be absolutely great at it. Another person might want to hide in the corner and not be an outgoing person when they start the job. I know for me personally, I'm a very shy person by nature. So it was very hard for me when I had to run program events. So I had to learn that. I had to learn to be more outgoing and things like that. So it's not a one size fits all. Take into consideration the learning style of the individual. Some people learn best by demonstration. And that's really great when you're doing virtual training, because you can just show someone how to do something and then they can try doing it. And if they're having trouble, they can share their screen back with you and you can help them. Others learn best by hearing. They're auditory learners, and others learn best by following step-by-step set of instructions on their own and then asking questions. I would say this early engagement comment on the slide really is an awesome and a very important point, is that it's very important for that new individual to get involved with the team. And I can remember when we were hybrid, it was post-COVID, and our team at Colorado, we would all get together and we would have so much fun because we would come in, we would run an event, we would do our, we're a testing site for FLS and FES. And so we would come in on testing days and have that. We would have our didactics days. We would come together and do that. And when the whole team was in the office and working on a particular event, it was just so much fun. We just had a good time with each other. And we were able to engage with the trainees and get to know them as people and get to know our program directors and get to know the faculty. And it just really is an important piece. Otherwise, I think it's really hard for people to want to do this job because if there's no personal connection, if it's just doing paperwork tasks all day, it just is really hard to be excited about the job. Next slide. So some foundational resources. All of these are now open source. They're very easy to just Google them or go over to the ACGME website or the ARAS website. I would say definitely provide the ACGME handbook, the ACGME ARAS new coordinator orientation at the national meeting, and also the ARAS membership national meeting resources. There's a one-day course from ACGME that's very helpful. It used to be in Chicago, and now a lot of it is virtual. And I know they haven't held that many of them recently, but they're wonderful, wonderful courses. And they give you a lot of information that you wouldn't get anywhere else when you go to those meetings. And they actually provide you program-specific information that you wouldn't find out anywhere else. Share handbooks, program handbooks. If your GME office has orientation, let them go to that. And then the ACGME website has multiple new coordinator and program director handbooks and training guides for work hours logging and all of that. I definitely think it's worth the money to send new coordinators to Chicago available and to the national meeting for ARAS, the Certified Education Week. That money is an investment and it's definitely worth doing. So I would recommend asking your graduate medical education office, your central one, to see if they will actually finance that. I know at Colorado, they do contribute to new coordinator training and to new program director training at the national meeting. Next slide. And then there's planning for the unexpected. So, because you can be in the middle of your little plan, right? You've got this 1-year plan, you're gonna get everything done and everything's gonna be perfect and this person's just gonna be perfectly trained and everything's gonna be awesome. And then all of a sudden you have an emergency. And so the question is, what can you do quickly to handle a crisis type situation? I personally am not a fan of trying to put everything in writing, since I think that's impossible anyway, and it becomes outdated pretty quickly. But there should be a shared repository of how things have been done in the past, policies and procedures, and sort of signed in orientation document and sign out exiting handoff document. And the key component of this is also the contact sheet of who to call, if. I would say your goal is not to document every detail of the job. That is completely unrealistic. But having resources in place that someone can refer to as they're trying to, cover for someone else who had to leave or having to, they had to step in and there's no one to train them per se because their peer may have left. In small offices, this is particularly important. I think that you should expect the unexpected. One of my favorite little books that I keep at home is by Roger Van Oak, and it's called Expect the Unexpected or You Won't Find It. And it quotes the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, and who said you can't step in the same river twice because the man is not the same or the woman is not the same when they step into the river, and the river is not the same because everything changes and it changes quickly. And so I think sometimes people invest maybe too much time in creating a huge, thick manual when in fact, providing principles and resources and where to access information, and then teaching people how to ask good questions and giving them training when they come in can really be a lot better than just trying to put everything into a step-by-step, because not everything lends itself to that. Next slide. So we're not trying to be supporting graduated autonomy, like we talked about. We're very serious about it. Although it is kind of interesting that you do need graduated autonomy in training new coordinators as well as you do in training surgeons. It's very, very essential. Next slide. So rather than expecting someone to take on full responsibility immediately, it helps to guide them through a progression. Typically, it starts with observation, as we mentioned, where the new team member learns by watching and understanding the workflows. Eventually, the goal is independence, where the individual can manage responsibilities confidently while still knowing support is available while needed. Make sure to create space for questions. Learning a role like this involves a lot of information, and encouraging open communication helps build confidence and competence over time. Next slide. So moving into quarters 3 and 4, using that same assumption that we have 1 year to get up to speed, you try to set up successes in this phase by gradually assigning larger and larger projects that span a greater amount of time and have more complexity. This is satisfying not only for you as the person managing, but also for the staff member who is learning more about the position.
Yeah.
Erin Anderson, you're muted, just so you know. And it may not feel natural, but the ongoing mentorship and feedback is very, very important, and it probably should be scheduled. Intentional debriefing and feedback time. Debrief after going through major program cycles. If you go through graduation and that some things go well and some things don't go well, it's important to talk about it. And it's actually great to do this as part of your whole team and have the program directors involved in that process, because they have, and the trainees also have a lot of valuable insights into how to make things better. I'm going to turn things over to Brittany for the next section. Oh, we got one more slide.
Yeah, you had one more.
So in terms of ongoing mentorship and feedback, these are just pictures of 1, 2, 3, 4 of those are from Colorado. And then in the top left, they're Wes and his new baby. They just had their baby a few weeks ago. That's here at Swedish. As you give your new staff member more responsibility, just include them in the personal things like parental leaves and personal leaves, specialty changes, fellowship applications, alumni contact. That gives you and them continuity of relationship, which in itself is helpful in the transition, that they have built relationships. And it's rewarding, and it's an incentive to stay and grow in the role. I mean, it is so fun to be part of, parental leaves. And, when things do not go well, that staff member can learn how to support someone who's having a difficult situation with their parental leave. Either way, you can really help them to build personal connections, which are very valuable for them and for you in long term.
All right, so next we're going to talk about structuring the surgical education team. So there is variation in teams, roles, and in structures. So one of the biggest things is larger GME offices or departments may have multiple staff members with specialized roles and very clear divisions of responsibility, where on the opposite end of that, smaller offices often require individuals to wear multiple hats and manage a broader range of tasks. So coordinators responsible for multiple programs may feel overextended, and it's really important for us to notice that. And it's relative their official FTE support. So this is where it can be helpful to reference ACGME guidelines and standards, which provide recommended minimum staffing levels based on program size and complexity. And a lot of the times we get questions about, well, what about those non-ACGME accredited programs? And that does not account for is monitored. So something that, we learned at Colorado was our GME office actually had something that said, well, this is the FTE that we have come up with. for an unaccredited program. And so we were able to go to our department and say, well, this is what our home institution says is what we need. And so, it is a lot of, going back and forth with your GME office saying, how can they advocate for you and your individualized departments and so forth. So, pros and cons to different staffing models. Having one person manage multiple programs can create efficiency and cross program knowledge, which is amazing. Because then when you do have turnover, you feel confident in the person that is there. They can handle that while you're training or helping potentially another program fill. But it also increases the workload and complexity. But on the other hand, more specialized roles can allow for deeper expertise, but it also may require more staffing resources for your department. So, pros and cons, how can you look within your institution to potentially benefit in either of these? And so that was something we definitely wanted to talk about because, again, having gone to ACGME, I know FTE was one of the biggest things for general surgery, having such large programs, et cetera, but also having to handle potentially other tasks. So role clarity and accountability. So the goal for me as a education manager in our department, it's not to simply delegate tasks from one person to another. It is more effective, in my opinion, to clearly define roles and areas of responsibility. So when individuals understand their roles within the program, they are more likely to take ownership of their work and feel accountable for outcomes. And this approach also helps ensure that responsibilities align with each person's skills, strengths, and professional development goals, as Claire mentioned earlier. So when the roles are well defined, it reduces confusion, prevents duplicated efforts, and helps a team function more efficiently. And it also makes the transition easier because the responsibility is tied to the role rather than scattered tasks and having to pick up potentially where people left off. So again, as mentioned in my introduction, I do work with a very large general surgery residency, and we are very fortunate to have 3 program coordinators for our 90 plus residents that we have. And so I have found it to be the most efficient for our coordinators to be assigned by level, like PGY level. And so this was just kind of an example of what I have made available to my program coordinators. So if someone was to leave and someone else was to step in, these are the overarching outside of the day-to-day tasks. And so I've tried to make it very clear, delegated, and that way it also the team doesn't feel like the other person's stepping on the other toes, etc. So it works really well with collaboration efforts. The other thing is building strong relationships. So strong relationships are foundational to success in this role. So feeling heard is usually sometimes one of the bigger problems when a program administrator or coordinator is working. They don't feel like they get the time with their program director like they need. And so, we're going to say that it is starting by getting to know your program director and your associate program directors. So that's not just them personally, but their communication styles, their priorities, and their expectations, so that you can also share your priorities and expectations as well. So being present and engaged increases your understanding of the program and strengthens your connections across teams. So really getting them out there to participate in activities beyond their assigned responsibilities. Our GME office hosts a lot of shared trainings, HR things, etc., that I encourage my team to go to. It may take out an hour of their day in their normal role, but it helps them collaborate with other people, going back to what we've said, in the beginning of collaboration with other departments across campus, etc. And the more you're able to engage, the more you will learn. And so you become more informed, effective, and integrated with the program and the department and the institution. So I know for me and my program director, we have biweekly meetings that started as weekly meetings when I first took on as the education manager for general surgery. And now it's just a touch point that we, unless we're on vacation, know that this is a priority. And that's because him and I have both established this as an important priority for both of us. I also, have one-on-one meetings after we are going to do web ads. Okay, this is what I've done. Where's your input? So I try to do a lot of face-to-face time. It doesn't always have to be scheduled because obviously with their schedules, it doesn't always work out that way. So when I am in office, I get in front of him and I'm like, this is what I need from you. How much time do you have? But we still have our standard meetings no matter what. So I think by you prioritizing and also, making sure you're fighting for that prioritization from them on the other end is really important. Um, so building your external network, connect with local programs and institutions. So as I mentioned previously, the University of Colorado works pretty hands-on with one of the community-based hospitals, St. Joe's. So I've done a good job with creating that relationship with their program coordinator, their program director, etc. Becoming a mentor or mentee. So that gives you different perspectives outside of your department. And as Claire mentioned, the ARAS and ACGME meeting is also important. But it's important to highly encourage the people in your department or institution to say, go out, like, have you utilized your resources? Have you done those things? I know for me, I'm a very social person, but the first year at Surgical Education Week, I was probably a fly on the wall. So it builds, you have to build in those things. And so I look at those as opportunities now to meet people. And I think the GME meetings that I would attend was a good starting point for me. It was something smaller, something local. So kind of meeting those people where they're at. And then I would say one of the most important things as well is building trust while maintaining boundaries. So it is important to be approachable and supportive for your trainees. You want to build those collaborative relationships. Trust grows through consistency and transparency. They want to be able to come to you and know that you are able to be timely and support them. But at the same time, maintaining boundaries is equally important. So hours of contact, email versus text, setting expectations, those sort of things. So my residents are very aware of when it's text worthy versus email. If you're running low on meals, you probably don't need to text me. I can get to that sometime in the near future for you. Or if it's I have an urgent leave and etc., then they know that to text me. But at the same account, I have to hold myself to the same standards. So just because I need a quick answer on something that is maybe minuscule in their live, I try to email and then I'll catch them and ask them or something. But I use text messaging for only those important and urgent things. So you have to hold yourself to the same standard. When I am on vacation, I do not respond to my residents' text messages, or I'll let them know I am on vacation. And so my away message always has, this is who you can contact while I am away. So I don't leave them just high and dry, obviously, but it's really important because again, burnout is one of those things that is a high level of turnover for this role. So, you need to support yourself as much as you need to support the trainees.
So the next stage is that ready, set, go. And talked a lot so far. Okay? Preparing, right? Getting people ready for a transition. And now we're going to talk about some of the basic building blocks that are very important when you're actually executing change. Next slide. So you want to assess readiness, when it gets to be close to the time. You create opportunities for your new person to develop leadership skills and ownership within the program. Like we talked about, Brittany mentioned, having that role delineation really does help do that. And letting them participate and run parts of the team meetings. Encourage ownership of program planning and requirements. Let them begin to lead the progression of the academic cycle. And then you just see by letting them try things, are they able to do those higher level tasks, the more complex projects? If problems arise, does the person take the next step and say, oh, I have this problem. I think this solution might work. What do you think? Rather than just flailing, and falling apart. Basically, that takes time to develop. that self-confidence. And so you want to build that and nurture that as much as you can. This allows them to become more involved in planning for the academic year and understanding how different program requirements fit together across the training cycle. These opportunities help you assess readiness for the transition while also building their confidence and their leadership capacity within the team. And that's critical for your long-term program sustainability and successful transitions. Next slide. So as you assess your current team structure, we've talked about different ways to structure your team. You can structure your team based on specific activities. Like when I was at Colorado, we had a simulation specialist and a database specialist. And then we had coordinator staff as well. And then we had myself as manager. At this point, it's structured by class at Colorado. And, there's someone who's unmuted. I just want you to his screen says thank you. And so if you do assess your structure, one of the things to consider is how many people do you have? What do you need to cover? How do those things dovetail? And who is currently in which role? And is that role the best fit for their skills and strengths? There may need to be realignment of that. Identify workflow gaps and identify where you have dropped balls on a regular basis. And then workload distribution. Is the work allocated evenly based on activity type, program needs, and the number of trainees? And explore professional development if you feel like there are gaps in that. Are there formal education or training opportunities available? I know we have some funding here at Swedish for people to go to school. People can do graduate work, or they can get their undergraduate degree or their associate's degree, whatever level they're on. They can take courses. And I think that can be very helpful to individuals who are trying to learn new things. Even just as much as going to an Excel course or something really simple can really help people master some of the activities that they need to handle. So you want to take time to consider each person's experience and make sure that their experience is a good match for where they're allocated and where they're assigned. Next slide. So here's the aligning slide. If your program continues to grow, which is a great thing, or your Office of Education continues to grow, then you may need to continue to fight for additional staffing needs. Because at Colorado, we grew to 75 trainees, and we're starting to grow beyond that. And I was the only person who was supporting that program. And it was not good for my wellness, I will just say that. And so I went to Dr. Naylor at that time and I said, look, I need some help in this office. You know, there are things I want to do with my life that are not just work. And I'll never be able to do that unless you get me some help in this office. And so together we went to the department chair and the department administrator and asked for resources. And here at Swedish, it's, you know, we are very small, but it's the same kind of thing. We have to advocate for the resources that we have. There are ACGM accredited and non-accredited requirements for FTE. So look into those. Those can help you. If you have limited resources, you may have to reallocate based on those FTE requirements. You may be able to identify shared roles or shared forms of support. If you have a robotics curriculum and it's a heavy component of your curriculum at your program, if you have simulation requirements, like we do in general surgery, you could request a simulation specialist also. You are the primary advocate for your program and for additional resources with your administrative director, your senior department manager, your program directors, and your chair. So now we're going to move into that final prep. Now you've assessed things and you kind of know where things stand. You kind of know gotten everybody ready, and let's assume that you personally are going to move on, or your previous coordinator is going to move on, and the time has come. So here's the final prep. Next slide. Just a couple of tips and examples here of handoff essentials. The inventory of what you have on hand for various activities. Space, including your door codes, your call room codes, future plans for space, your security access, passwords for all of the important programmatic things, and in some cases, helping the program directors keep track of their passwords. Sometimes that's an issue. Shared drives, sharing confidential operational information that needs to be handled properly once you or the coordinator are gone, and handoff of long-term tasks that are sort of partly done. Couple of examples of these confidential type things that might come up and have everywhere I've been at UMass and at Colorado and here is that there may be some verifications that the program director themselves has earmarked that they want to do, and they don't want you to prepare, or even the DIO may need to prepare. The files location for those, legal matters that are ongoing or pending, residents who are on observation or probation, who are repeating a year and they have milestones that they need to achieve and where those letters are being kept, absite remediation plans, individualized learning plans, and plans to address the citations that are incomplete or in process with the follow-up dates. And here at Swedish, one of the things that we do with Swedish GME is that's very helpful is we use a SharePoint type spreadsheet, and we identify each area when there's a response to a citation. We have timeline, we have person responsible, and then we have the specifics of what we've done. And then there's some follow-up columns on the right so that we can go back and we can share that all of those things have been handled. Then we have tabs that are for the short term, medium term, and long term for each of those. And we establish specific dates for that. And I think that can be very helpful as a transition if you are addressing citations. Next slide. So how do you empower this new leader that you've nurtured and helped? Well, one of the biggest things you have to do, and it's really essential, is that you have to make sure that that person has full access to everything and that they're recognized as the leader. Guide the transition through visibility and communication. Use a walkthrough, like take them with you the week before you leave, or the week before the coordinator leaves, have the previous coordinator take them through and introduce them to the important people. Take them over to your GME office, take them up to your chairman's office, take them over to your GME office that's in your building. Whatever the key contacts are, take them with you and make sure that they are known as the person that's going to take care of it. If there's a department meeting, a staff meeting, take them there and introduce them there, and do it in person if at all possible. The other thing is you've got opportunities to optimize space when a person leaves or a new person comes. But if there is a designated space for that person, make sure that it's set up for them and that they have the tools that they need, both the software tools and the access tools for that space before either you leave or the previous coordinator leaves. I think it's really discouraging to come into a new office and not have the tools you need. And it takes a little bit of forethought, and sometimes it takes money, and I know money is tight these days, so it can be hard. But I know I was able to source a standing desk for my new coordinator when she came in here, and she said that was important to her. And so I was able to find one. I wasn't able to purchase one, but I was able to get one. We have a swap website, and I was able to find one and get our facilities people to move it. So simple things like that, they can make a really big difference. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany.
And then last but not least, after the transition, Um, the best thing would be to stay available as much as possible. I know a lot of the times it could be you potentially moving on. Um, and so remain a resource for those who step into the role after you. Be open for questions that come up after the transition occurred. Um, the one-off situations come up more and more frequently when you're alone. It's like, oh my gosh, this isn't something I was prepared for. You have a tendency to have the freak out mode. So a transition does not end the moment responsibilities are handed off. There will inevitably be moments when the new person encounters something unexpected or familiar. And so, allowing them to come back. So I know when Claire left, I was like, okay, it's my turn to take on the team. And I did text her and was like, hey, how did you guys handle those visas? I'll be honest with you. 7 years training program with visas, not ideal, right? And so I was like, how did you handle this? Because I had to become the visa expert. I had to figure those things out. And so it was comforting and knowing that I still had somebody there to just reach out and ask a question to. And so I think that that's important too after the secession has officially taken place. And so aim to continue serving as their mentor. So that, especially if you're staying in the same, line of work industry, it was beneficial for me that Claire just moved states. She didn't necessarily like change an entire different job title. So it was just still willing to like mentor me and etc. And so always celebrate your mentee's success after they move on to other things. And so, succession planning ideally would be that they would take on after us, but it could be in other roles, it could be outside the department, it could be outside of the facility. So you always want to encourage them, foster their learning and development, etc. So that's all of us together, our program director. So we'll leave any time for questions or anything like that. And then at the end, we do have a reference list. So happy to share the PowerPoint, etc. So you guys can use some of that stuff. Stop sharing too.
Thank you so much, Claire and Brittany. It was a very informative session. Thank you so much. Succession planning protects accreditation, education, patient care, and program stability all at once. Programs that do it well aren't scrambling during transitions and they barely feel disrupted at all. I myself am a firm believer of networking and advocating for yourself and being available to those who need help. Before we move on to questions, we have other ARAS EC members on the line that I did not get to introduce at the beginning as I wanted to make sure we started on time. ARAS EC, please take a second to introduce yourselves.
I'm Dana Cooley. I'm the president-elect this year, and I will be president starting in May after Mary Ann.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Davis.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm the communication chair.
And hi, I'm Kara Connoisseur.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janice Hutchison. I am the social chair.
Okay, great. Gonna check in the chat to see if we have any questions. Tina Brooks said thank you. Odinate, great presentation. Thank you. Sarah Brown, great topic. Thorough presentation. Appreciate your sharing your experience and lessons learned. Tanya, this was great. I've never come into a program with any training or resources. I create a manual everywhere I go. Just the who to contact and websites to utilize is super helpful. Very true. Yeah, I think a handbook or a workbook that shows standard operation procedures is very helpful. Any other questions?
Shared Drive, where we keep previous year's documents, and that's very, very helpful because you're not starting from scratch. The shared drive resource.
I'm sorry, Claire, can you repeat the beginning? You got cut off.
Or both at Colorado and here at Swedish, we have shared drives where we store our resources, and it makes it so much easier because you're not starting from scratch. You can look at the previous year and how it was done, not necessarily doing it the exact same way. But in addition to administrative handbooks, which we also have, but it's just nice to also be able to actually just look at how things were done the previous year's documents.
I agree. We have a share drive. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we can look at previous year and we can also improve upon it. So we use the share drive and we also make use of the SharePoint.
Yes, I was just thinking that, but I didn't.
Yeah.
The SharePoint is used heavily at Swedish, and just being able to share the link is nice. And it's also, we use it for our conferences as well.
That's excellent. We have a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions or anything you wish to say. Okay, I don't see anything new in the chat. Claire and Brittany, thank you so much for your time and your presentation. It was really great and very informative, and we'll have this recording available to everyone after today.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.